Hey, how's it going? This is Kim. I'm going to read to you from the Urantia book. First, something short from Light the Flame, Andrew Harvey. Okay, this is Psalm 69. Psalm 69. Oh God, come to my help. Lord, hurry to my rescue. Yeah, okay, you can't get any more profound than that. Yes, I need help. I can't do all this stuff on my own. I need God in my life to help me, to be there for me. And if things are going good today, well, thank you. But if they're not, even if they're going good today, still, I know I still need your help. I still need God in my life here. All right. Well, that's pretty straightforward. I don't think we need to pontificate on that. All right, we're going to read a long one today. We got part 11 of the foreword, the three absolutes, which was only fair because yesterday was a shorter one, but okay. Okay, when the combined thought of the universal Father and the eternal Son functioning in the God of action constituted the creation of the divine and central universe, the Father followed the expression of his thought into the word of his Son and the act of their conjoint executive by differentiating his Habona presence from the potentials of infinity. Holy smoke. Okay, so God the Father and the Eternal Son had the same thought, okay? That we need to make something, all right? So if we're going to make something, we need stuff to make it out of, right? So we need to separate the stuff from the spiritual stuff, the stuff. Okay, so that gave rise here to both the Havona, physical presence of heaven, as well as the Holy Spirit, which is also known as the conjoint executive or the conjoint actor. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And these undisclosed infinity potentials remain space concealed by space, in the unqualified absolute and divinely enshrouded in the deity absolute. While these two become one in the functioning of the universal absolute, the revealed infinity unity of the Paradise Father. Okay, so there's all kinds of undisclosed potentials that are concealed and enshrouded. Okay, because we don't see, we see through a glass darkly, right? Okay, so and these infinity stuff is hidden for us, and it's for a good reason, because then we have to play this this game of hide and seek here, trying to find it and trying to so, but this is the only way. It seems silly. It seems like sometimes in my early development, I thought, oh, why is God playing these silly games with us? When, you know what I mean? It seems like we're just toys, or we're being manipulated, or like puppets. We're like, you know what I mean? But you have to go back to, this is the only way that there could be anything at all. Okay? If it weren't for these little machinations here, or the primordial machination idea of God separating itself, God's self um, from um, from itself somehow. Okay, and creating a part where there was less holiness, less deity, right? Or so that we would have to search to find God, right? This separation is what engendered the whole experience of being. If this had not, was not, then there would be, everything would be, like the pudding thing, smooth, nothing, there would be nothing happening. There would just be, yeah, there would just be God in this smooth, undifferentiated mass of infinity. Okay, so God doesn't know that it's holy and that God is God unless there is the not God, or the so then you get this game playing in this cycle of coming back to God and going forth into the not God and going back to God. Okay, so that's this experience that we were living in. Yeah. And when you appreciate it in this way, it's very beautiful. Because there was, everything was just smooth, and all of a sudden now things start to emerge from that, and all of our experience, who we are, and everything emerges from this, and instead of feeling like why do we have to play these silly games, you start to feel really grateful for the idea, for the whole experience of being. Okay, and then when you're getting that, then you're there here, and then you manage to feel grateful for even your trials, your tribulations, because they're teaching you something. They're expanding your potentials, and your, you know and when you're feeling grateful for that truly, then you know that you're well on your way to being perfected being. Okay. All right. Let's just keep going here. This is so deep though. It's like, holy cow. Okay, both potency of cosmic force and potency of spirit force are in process of progressive revelation realization, as the enrichment of all reality is effected by experiential growth and through the correlation of the experiential with the existential by the universal absolute. Okay, I'm going to keep going. By virtue of the equiposing presence of the universal absolute, the first source and center realizes extension of experiential power, enjoys identification with his evolutionary creatures, and achieves expansion of experiential deity on the levels of supremacy, ultimacy, and absoluteness. Okay, well, see, this is how God works. See, God separates this because God can do that, this trick of trinitization and separating itself into these aspects. Then, only because of that, he can create. That's this power to create us and identify with us and put a piece of God's self into us and all over the universe. So that's really great, Okay. When it is not possible fully to distinguish the deity absolute from the unqualified absolute, their supposedly combined function or coordinated presence is designated the action of the universal absolute. So the absolute, so the three absolute, this is about the deity absolute, the universal, and the unqualified absolute. Right. Okay. So, right. So this is the yin yang here, the three absolutes. And so we have in the deity absolute, we have this energy that's organized, that has a that's known, that's where we understand things, and we have an objective, a goal to reach here. Okay. And then the unqualified absolute, which is really random potentials, right? So that's right. So when you think of here, the I'm thinking of the double split experiment here, when a particle, subatomic particle, is either a wave or a particle. So if it's acting, if it's observed here, it's condensed into a particle. That's the deity absolute. And simultaneously, at the same time, it exists as a wave of potential. Okay, when we're not looking at it, right? But when we observe, excuse me, my nose itches, probably from cat things, wonderful cat little particles, cat wave functions, right? Okay, so the wave function is the unquality, the no, what is unqualified absolute, right? And then the balance between those things is the universal absolute. So the universal absolute functions as kind of the observer, like what are we looking, yeah, and is it a wave or particle, something like that. So to keep these things balanced, okay? Okay. All right. The deity absolute seems to be the all-powerful activator, while the unqualified absolute appears to be the all-efficient mechanizer of the supremely unified and ultimately coordinated universe of universes, even universes upon universes, made, making, and yet to be made. The deity absolute cannot, or at least does not, react to any universe situation in a sub-absolute manner, right? Because the deity absolute, I believe, is an actor, not a reactor. Okay? I think. Every response of this absolute to any given situation appears to be made in terms of the welfare of the whole creation, of things and beings, not only in its present state of existence, but also in view of the infinite possibilities of all future eternity. So the deity absolute is good because it cares for all of creation, not just, its own power. It doesn't seek to take away from the unqualified absolute. It seeks to maximize potentials. Okay, the deity absolute is that potential which was segregated from the total infinite reality by the free will choice of the universal Father, and within which all divinity activities, existential and experiential, take place. This is the qualified absolute in contradistinction to the unqualified absolute, but the universal absolute is superadditive to both in the encompassment of all absolute potential. Right, because I understand that the universal absolute is both this the line that balances the two, and it's also places the seeds of growth. So within the unqualified absolute, there is a seed of the deity absolute. Okay? Right? And within the deity absolute is the seed of the unqualified absolute, and it turns, it cycles. Yeah, I think that's amazing. Okay. The unqualified absolute is non-personal, extra divine, and undeified. So it's undeified, but it's extra divine. Okay, so divinity is we talked about divinity as being the flavor of deity. So it's like the perfume of deity, but in itself it's not deified because it's not personal. It's like energy, it's like impersonal energy. Okay, so it doesn't have motive, it doesn't have purpose. It's just um, pure potential. Okay, so deity absolute is personalized, but it still can be, it says, is that potential which was segregated from the total. Well, so when we have a goal, we still have choices. That means there's still potential, but there is where this is the area where we're sussing out the values of our actions and our ideas. Okay, unqualified absolute doesn't do that, but it's extra divine. That means it's, oh gosh, extra divine. I'm getting this idea that, okay, the holiest hour of the day is right before the sunrise, because that is when all things are possible. It's looking at the day as to, is the sun going to come up or not? Is it what kind of a time is it going to be? And it always say it's always darkest right before the dawn, right? So that's the extra divine, that's the holiest time, because anything is possible right then. You're on the cusp of something new, right? You get to decide what it's going to be. You haven't decided yet, but it's like, it could be anything I want it to be. I could go try to fly off the end of the earth or something like that. I could go to the Capitol. I could wear something I never wore, do something I never did before. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, extra divine. Where did I saw that? And undeified. The unqualified absolute is therefore devoid of personality, divinity, but is extra divine, but it's devoid of divinity and all creator prerogatives. Neither fact nor truth, experience nor revelation, philosophy nor absurdity are able to penetrate the nature and character of this absolute without universe qualification. So this is so deep and dark that nobody knows what it is. It can't be known. It's pure potential. Let it be made clear that the unqualified absolute is a positive reality. It's not like a black hole, like a black pit. It's something that's it's positive reality pervading the grand universe and apparently extending with equal space presence on out into the force activities and pre-material evolutions of the staggering stretches of the space regions beyond the 7 super universes. Dark matter. Dark matter. Yeah, I think the unqualified absolute is dark matter. They're saying that makes up so much of the stuff of the universe. It's dark matter. It's like it's there, but we don't know what it is. It's there. It permeates everything, but you can't know what it is. You can't even ask it. It doesn't make sense to ask it. You can't do it. Don't try to do it. The unqualified absolute is not a mere negativism of philosophic concept predicated on the assumptions of metaphysical sophistries concerning the universality, dominance and primacy of the unconditioned and the unqualified. The unqualified absolute is a positive universe over control and infinity. This over control is space force limited, unlimited. This over control is space force unlimited, but is definitely conditioned by the presence of life, mind, spirit, and personality, and is further conditioned by the will reactions and purposeful mandates of the paradise trinity. So this is like the ultimate silly putty stuff. It's like the stuff, but it is controlled by the deity, forces from the deity absolute that will mold it and kind of like extract from it and make it into something, right? But when it's there in itself, you can't, it doesn't have any, it's just random like potential stuff. Okay, right. But it is something, it is a stuff. So it has something. But then the deific forces take hold of it. Consciousness takes it and makes it into something. We are convinced that the unqualified absolute is not an undifferentiated and all-pervading influence comparable either to the pantheistic concepts of metaphysics or to the sometime ether hypothesis of science. The unqualified absolute is force unlimited and deity conditioned. But we do not fully perceive the relation of this absolute to the spirit realities of the universes. Okay, so we don't fully, it's not fully perceivable. Okay, it's unknown, right? So, but it is deity conditioned because deity can kind of put the boundaries around it. It's force unlimited. So it's like, it could be anything. It could be, there's no limit to what it could be. It's unlimited. Okay. But it's not like anything that you can frame any concept about. It's not like that. If you can think of something, the fact that you can think of it means it's not like the unqualified absolute. Okay. All right. Wow. It's not like anything that you could ever think of, ever conceive of. It's the holy darkness. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, the universal absolute, we logically deduce, was inevitable in the Father's absolute free will act of differentiating universal realities into deified and undeified, personalizable and non-personalizable values. The universal absolute is the deity phenomenon indicative of the resolution of the tension created by the free will act of thus differentiating universe reality and functions as the associative coordinator of these sum totals of existential potentialities. Totally makes sense. So we need to have something balancing these things. So this is a phenomenon. The universal absolute is the deity phenomenon indicated of the resolution of this tension. So these two forces, this dark matter stuff that's under, is totally kind of like, at odds with this. Okay, you think you're a wave, but I see you, you're a particle now, right? Or something like that. It's totally trying to organize this stuff when this stuff here doesn't want to be organized. So it needs something here to balance it out here. So yeah, because you can't just make use all that. It's like money in the bank. You can't use all the money in the bank, or you have to balance your debits and your credits and stuff. I think that's what it is, something like that. So the universal absolute makes sure that this is all balanced out, that the deity absolute isn't overreaching itself, and the the unqualified absolute I'm picturing as being like stubborn and resolutely like, no, I'm not gonna do what your thing, what you want. Okay. And that's why, it's kind of like deity absolute is identified with masculine, the directive force. And the universal or the unqualified absolute is identified with the feminine, but that's not totally in line with it. We're all, you know what I mean? But it's like, oh, you think so? You think you're going to get your way? You know what I mean? You think you're going to get your way with me. And then the deity absolute, yeah, I'm gonna try to do that. I'm gonna make plans until you give in to what I give me some of your energy here. Give me some of your ooh-ha, Okay, anyway, right. So the tension presence of the universal absolute signifies the adjustment of differential between deity reality and undeified reality inherent in the separation of the dynamics of free will divinity from the statics of unqualified infinity. Right. Yeah. Okay. I think I read the whole thing. Didn't I read the whole thing? I think I did. Always remember, potential infinity is absolute and inseparable from eternity. Okay. So we can't really separate this stuff out because it's in everything, like dark matter is part of everything. Actual infinity in time can never be anything but partial. Okay, and must therefore be non-absolute. Neither can infinity of actual personality be absolute except in unqualified deity. Okay, parse that out a little bit. Okay, because even if you take half of infinity, it's still infinity. Both halves are still infinite, right? So you can have partial infinity, like half of infinity, but it's still infinity. I don't know, dude. And it is, okay, but it's not absolute. It must be partial, and then it's not absolute because there's part of it that's different than the other part. Okay, so if you split infinity in half, like you split infinity into the deity absolute and the unqualified absolute, both of those are still infinite even though they're different from each other. Okay, of actual personality be absolute except in unqualified deity. Infinity of actual personality be absolute except in unqualified deity. And it is the differential of infinity potential in unqualified absolute and the deity absolute that eternalizes the universal absolute. Thereby making it cosmically possible to have material universes in space and spiritually possible to have finite personalities in time. Okay, so just the whole turning of this makes everything possible. So the whole presence of the unqualified and the deity absolute and the universal absolute, that makes everything possible. Okay. God, this is so wild. Okay. The finite can coexist in the cosmos along with the infinite only because of the associative presence of the universal absolute so perfectly equalizes the tensions between time and eternity, finity and infinity, reality potential and reality actuality, paradise and space, man and God. Associatively, the universal absolute constitutes the identification of the zone of progressing evolutional reality. Associatively, the universal absolute constitutes the identification of the zone of progressing evolutional reality. Okay, so which direction are we going here? Okay, progressing evolutional reality existent in the time-space and in the transcended time-space universes of sub-infinite deity manifestation. Okay. Okay, so the universal absolute, balances things out is what I'm feeling here. I don't know what else. I'm trying to get something more out of this, but it's like, oof. Okay. Okay, constitutes the identification of the zone of, so it determines the direction of how we're developing in this. Okay, and in the transcended time space, okay, so this depends, on how things are, if it's growing or if it's, condensing, or just, how are we doing that? That's the universal absolute that's deciding how are we going. We have to balance this stuff out, and it's always the universal absolute is the potential of the static dynamic deity functionally realizable on time eternity levels as finite absolute values and as possible of experiential existential approach. This incomprehensible aspect of deity may be static, potential, and associative, but is not experientially creative or evolutional as concerns the intelligent personalities now functioning in the master universe. So the way I understand it, the deity absolute, the yang part is the creative part. Okay? The universal absolute is the manager, the accountant, the balancing, right? And the unqualified absolute is the resource, the money, the stuff, the material, or the just the energy, material stuff, just the resources, right? That doesn't really have a will kind of thing. But here, the universal absolute is there to conserve that, even though both are infinite. You can't really, even though both are infinite, they both need managing. Otherwise, I don't know, something bad would happen. Okay. Yeah. It's an incomprehensible aspect of deity. This may be static, potential, and associated, but is not experientially creative. So it's not creative. There's no creative accounting or evolutional as concerns the intelligent personalities. Okay, so it doesn't really evolve. Okay, let's keep going. Let's just, okay, you can't, I have a tiny little mind, that's all. The absolute, the two absolutes, qualified and unqualified, while so apparently divergent in function as they may be observed by mind creatures, are perfectly and divinely unified in and by the universal absolute. So this is a perfect machine, like the yin yang. In the last analysis and in the final comprehension, all three are one absolute. On sub-infinite levels, they are functionally differentiated, but in infinity, they are one. We never use the term the absolute as a negation of aught or as a denial of anything. Never do we regard the universal absolute as self-determinative, a sort of pantheistic and impersonal deity. No, it's not pantheistic. It's not like everything is pantheistic as God is in everything kind of thing. No, it doesn't have a will really. It's just the balance of these. The absolute, and all that pertains to universe personality, is strictly Trinity limited and deity dominated. Wow. And all that pertains to universe personality. So I think, I don't know, can the deities mess with this thing? This is kind of foundational. This is absolute. This is like a absolute is something that you can't really change or mess with. So, I think this is kind of like, to me, it's like an engine. It just keeps going, and it's just, and it can't be, it's perfect. It's already perfect. It was designed, made perfect. So even if God could mess with it, change it, there's no way he'd want to, because he's perfect. It's perfect. And, it just does what it does, and it doesn't need to have consciousness or anything or any kind of thing. To me, it doesn't make sense to really say that it's evolving thing, even though here I know I talked about that. The universal absolute, I don't think has a consciousness or a will of its own. It's just that it's just kind of an automatic perfect thing. And a regulator, and just like the whole thing is just on time. It's just clips the way it doesn't ever run out of anything, because it feeds on itself. It moves itself, and it just everything is kind of brought into it and churned out and brought back in through it, and it comes around. Everything goes through it, and it's perfect. You don't want to mess with it, because it's already doing everything right. And it has these three parts, and they're all perfect. So we only have will. Will is the deity absolute, the whole aspect of choosing and being able to plot a course in directive energy. We only have that. It's only possible because we have this in unqualified absolute to draw from, to make it so. See? So I don't think that as a whole it evolves, but it can be, I don't think as a whole thing it evolves, but you can't, and you couldn't like decide here to change or interrupt this thing that would cancel itself out, because it would, just because it couldn't do that. If you had like a deity absolute here decided, well, I want to change this whole setup and be in control of the whole thing, well, that would mess the whole thing up. So you wouldn't the universal absolute would function to cancel that objective, because that's not even a thing that could be an objective. I don't know. It's really weird. It's really cool. Anyway, I think that's all for today. It kept you a long time, but I think that because the deity absolute is perfect, it wouldn't mess with something that's perfect. It only does things to maximize the whole of creation, the whole potential of everything. See? And I think it's possible that it expands when it's good, but I don't think it decides anything like you know, I don't know, pretty fascinating. Okay, I'm gonna stop. You're welcome. All right. See you next time. Bye.